throw that in there. So we've been talking about Spencer Rattler and Drake Maye, obviously a lot. How do you guys think Spencer played? Like, is it fair? Obviously, I don't necessarily think it's fair to credit the loss to him, but what did you guys see from South Carolina's quarterback?
If anybody throws this loss on Spencer Rattler, they're crazy. They're out of their minds. This is not Spencer Rattler's fault in any way, shape, or form. I said it at the beginning of the show, but I think for what Spencer was given, especially with the offensive line struggles, he did a pretty good job. He threw for over 350 yards. He had a 77% completion percentage. Like, he was pretty good yesterday. I mean, obviously it's not exactly what you want, but I think for the amount of pressure that he endured and the little amount of time that he had to make plays, he did a decent job. So I think Spencer did fine yesterday. I think we did see those improvements that they talked about in the off season. They said Spencer got better as a quarterback. I would say, yeah, Spencer did get better as a quarterback from what I saw last year to what I saw last night, even though South Carolina lost. We'll talk about stats, I think, a little later on in the show, but we were talking about this before we pressed record. Drake Maye was pressured 6 times on 35 dropbacks. Spencer Rattler was pressured 18 times last night. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's triple the number of what Drake Maye endured. So I think Spencer was good last night. You cannot pin this loss on Spencer Rattler. Again, for what he was given, I think he kind of made lemonade out of lemons.
Kendall, Collyn, before you chime in real quick, I will follow up with this too. Can you compare the performances between Maye and Rattler? Is it fair to compare the performances? Like, what do you think about the whole quarterback battle? Like, is there a winner?
Well, Drake Maye won, but it's so hard. Yes, they play the same position, but it's apples and oranges to a degree, just because, again, Drake Maye was pressured on 17% of dropbacks. Spencer Rattler pressured on 18 of 55, 30-something% of dropbacks. Like, two completely different situations where Maye had Spencer Rattler's average time to throw on Saturday night was 2.62 seconds. 2.62. As my computer loads, Drake Maye's average time to throw was 2.61, but he had a full second more to throw when under pressure than Spencer Rattler did. And they got the ball out quickly. They didn't have to really think. They weren't affected as much. And if you're Spencer Rattler, I thought he did a really good job at times getting out of the pocket and scrambling. And he had a couple runs for first downs, 2 on third down. He looked improved. He looked like a dude that was incredibly confident in what he can do. The problem was it was hard to succeed because when they tried to push the ball down the field, it's just he didn't have enough time to get out there and throw and do what he needed to do. And only 10 of his attempts, if I'm looking at the math correct, he had 5 attempts of 10 to 20 yards and 5 attempts of 20 plus, and the rest were 10 yards or in. So he didn't have a lot of time to throw when they were calling plays to try to mitigate some of the offensive line struggles, and 2 completely different game plans, and just a situation, I think, where Spencer he was put in a very, very tough spot, but I thought he played fairly well.
Well, I would also add this to Drake Maye threw 2 interceptions. I don't have the exact number on how many times Drake Maye put the ball in danger. You know how PFF has that stat, but I know for a fact, Collyn, we talked about this. Spencer Rattler didn't have any questionable throws where he put the ball in danger of potentially being intercepted according to PFF stats. So you look at that as a positive as well. I think that's something you need to take into consideration. But, I know that people will want to blame the play calling. I'm not saying it was the perfectly called game. It was Dowell Loggains' first game as the OC for South Carolina. What I will say is it's hard to call a game when your offensive line is giving no opportunity for your quarterback or your running back to make a play.
Yeah. South Carolina, the game plan, listen, at some point, the game plan just becomes we have to air it out because we're down 3 scores, and you can't because the offensive line's not giving you enough time to push the ball down the field, and you just don't have a running game. I know Kendall has a stat, but South Carolina, they ran the ball 22 times last night, excluding sacks, according to Game on Paper. They had 8 runs that gained 0 yards or were dropped for a loss. 8 of 22, which is 36%. They had 13 runs of those that were 2 yards or fewer, what we call stopped runs. That is 59%, almost 60% of your runs gained fewer than 2 yards. It's not good enough when you're a team that has to pass the ball a ton. It allows that North Carolina defense to know what's coming, and that's just, it's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
I'll add one more thing here. I'm sorry, Joe, to cut you off.
No,
Collyn
go
and
ahead,
I are
Ken.
getting on a roll with
Absolutely.
this question. You get us started, and we're like, we're
I
not
love
going
it.
to
No,
stop.
I love it. It means the
You're
questions
going to
are
have to
good.
mute us here in a second. But
Yeah.
the only other thing that I'll add, I think from a play calling perspective, at least in my opinion, I get it. Like, you don't have a lot to work with there, as I've already said, because it's just hard to make a play in those circumstances. I do think that South Carolina ran the ball with Dakarrion Joyner a little bit too much for my personal liking. Nothing against Dakarrion Joyner. I think he's a great guy. He's a great athlete. And I think there were flashes last night where you were like, wow, like for a guy who just got put in this situation as a running back this season, he looks pretty darn good. So hats off to him for that. But if it were me, and I know this is easier said than done because you have to take a lot of other things into consideration with it, but I would put, I think, a little bit more stake and a little bit more emphasis on giving more opportunities to my 5-star quarterback than I would to someone who just got put into the position of running back. That would be my personal opinion. But again, I'm not the offensive coordinator. I'll never be an offensive coordinator. I'm just the peanut gallery observing from the sidelines.
Kendall, maybe you'll get the call for the next OC opening. We will see here at South Carolina. But